Good morning. Today I'm going to share 7 truths that completely changed my life and help give me a really strong, resilient mindset. It really comes down to a lot of the internal beliefs and stories that you're telling yourself and that you are choosing to repeat over and over and over in your head. These have completely been my anchor in going through losing a baby, in shifting a business, in growing in my marriage, in helping raise my kids. The first one is just radical acceptance of myself at all times. This was huge for me when I first really began to observe just how critical I was of myself and how there were parts of me that I didn't want to acknowledge or that I wanted to pretend didn't exist or that I was afraid to look at because I thought I would have condemnation or judgment for myself. Telling myself that it's okay, that I'm okay, that all of me is welcome, really helped me to release a lot of the pressure that I was carrying. Number 2 was changing the meaning that I'm giving things. So at all times, we're constantly seeing stuff happening in the world or interactions people are having with us, and then we're telling ourselves something about it. So when I hear someone say something to me, I'm telling myself something about what they're saying to me. And usually it has some sort of charge to it, and it might not always be positive. And so I started asking myself, what am I making this mean when something happened, when I interacted with someone? And when I found what I was making it mean, I asked myself, is that actually true? And why? Why would that actually be true? And then I found that most of the time it wasn't actually true. It was just what I was choosing to believe was true. And so I began to say, how could you neutralize this? Instead of just telling yourself this negative story about it, how could you see this from a neutral perspective, or heck, even change it to a positive? And creating all these emotions and all of these things in my head that I didn't actually need to be dealing with. Number 3, I cleared the past by healing my resentment and forgiving what needed to be forgiven. Man, we hold on to so much that we're not even aware of. And for years, I held on to the past. And even though I would have said like, oh no, I've let that go or I'm over it, my body was still really holding on. I felt heavy. I felt weighed down. My health was going. I had a lot of things in my body that were telling me like, hey, you are not actually over this. And so I really worked on physically processing that out of my body and taking the time to acknowledge it and forgive myself, forgive other people, and then truly change it by changing the story around it and letting it go. Because we can't create a future when we're constantly holding on to the past and we're constantly looking back at the past. We can't create something different. So I wanted to make room for a new future, and I wanted to create something different instead of recreating what I had already been through. And when we sit here and dwell in the past or we keep looking back, we just keep recreating it. Number 4, when I need to make a decision, I ask myself, if I knew I couldn't mess it up and if I wasn't afraid, what would I let myself do? What would I let myself ask for? Who would I let myself be? Because so much of the time we have, again, so much pressure on ourselves. And we constantly are looking at how we're messing things up or how we're not doing enough or how we're falling short somehow. And so then when we go to make a decision, we don't even realize that that's the place we're making a decision from. Is like, oh, but yeah, what if this goes wrong? And like, what if this ruins everything? Or what if this, whatever? And instead of asking what if something negative happens, I began to ask myself like, hey, what if I knew I couldn't mess it up? What if I knew this was going to work out for me no matter what? Then what would I let myself do? Because that actually revealed what I really wanted. That revealed what my ultimate true desire was, how I really felt. And that let the highest version of me come forth and like make the decision rather than just playing small by the limited version of me that was afraid and that had all of these fears. Number 5 is regularly asking who and what in my life no longer fits and what I'm feeling weighed down by. So this is just a good practice to help you stay in a healthy mindset because we're always growing, we're always evolving, we're always changing. So is our life. We have seasons. And people don't always fit every single season, and neither do situations. And when we don't let them go, when we try to bring them into a new season, we hold ourselves back from actually fully stepping into our new season. And so for me, I start to feel irritated. I start to feel stuck. I start to feel stagnant when I'm holding on to stuff in my life that doesn't fit who I am now and where I want to go. And so I've come to recognize that it's a beautiful thing to let go. It's a beautiful thing to admit that things have a season, that people have a season, to thank them, in my mind, for being part of the season, and then also to forgive myself, forgive them, and forgive the situation, forgive the fact that I've been holding on to them, right? Anything like that, and then bless and release. And that also makes room for new, because we have to let go of the past season to accept the new season. So just regularly revisiting that question, because we will start to feel weighed down. We will start to feel heavy. We will start to feel stuck when we're not letting go of the old and stepping forward into the new. Number 6, hiring help. This doesn't sound like a mindset tip, but man, I will say, when you're in a marriage and raising kids, you got to hire help, or you're just going to start to feel like the help. And this is something that we really changed in our marriage years ago. And it was a jump. And I remember when we first had a discussion about hiring a housekeeper, my husband was like, "We're going to what?" And I was like, "Well, think about it. You and I are both working during the day, plus we're raising the kids. And in the evenings, instead of spending time together as a family with each other, with the kids, we're cleaning the house. We're doing laundry, right?" And so we just decided, it wasn't in the budget, but we were going to somehow make the money to afford to pay someone to start helping us. And that was the best decision ever. My husband to this day will look at me and say, like, that was the best decision we ever made, and he will never go back. And it's really important, if you want to stay in a place of being fulfilled, happy, connected, feeling like you, to hire as much help as you can. And I recognize not everybody's in the same situation. And I always think that we can do more than we think we can, right? We tell ourselves all of these stories about why we can't, instead of looking for how we could. And so we started looking for how we could, and it really fostered healthy relationship, healthy connection, really helps to foster a healthy mindset and to keep you feeling fulfilled and happy, because there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many roles you can play. And when you keep stretching yourself so thin, you're not going to feel like yourself. You're not going to be connected to yourself. You're not going to be connected to your spouse. So hiring as much help as possible. Doesn't sound like a mindset tip, but it definitely assists in mindset. And number 7, I stopped overthinking and sweating the small stuff. It's so easy to think ourselves out of the nudges that we get. We get all these nudges that's like, hey, you should do this, or you should try this, or this is this. And those nudges are your path. That's your guidance. That's telling you where you're supposed to go, what you're supposed to do. And then our brain gets in the way and we overthink it. And so taking the time to follow what I felt as opposed to what I thought really actually strengthened my mindset, because it showed me that I could trust myself. It showed me that I didn't need to constantly overthink, and that I could let myself do what I felt and do what I was drawn to. And then not sweating the small stuff helped me relax and helped me to just enjoy the journey. I stopped future tripping, is what I call it, when you live in the, but what if, next week when this happens, I have to deal with this, and then what am I going to do? Oh my gosh, I stopped doing that, and I started saying, when that comes, I will deal with it if that happens, and I will trust myself that I will know in that moment what to do. I don't need to be thinking about all the potential things that could happen somehow in the future and start deciding now how I want to deal with it when I don't even know if that's going to happen, number 1. And number 2, I'm not there yet. So I'm not the person that I will be by the time I get there to make that decision. And I told myself that things are always adding up and working out for me. Things are always adding up and working out for me. And I have chosen to believe that no matter what happens. And then I look for the evidence to back that up, because your experience is up to you. And if you tell yourself that all these crappy things are happening, and therefore that means it's going to be crappy, you will find evidence for that. If you tell yourself that things are always working out for you, and adding up for your good, you will look for evidence for that and you will see that. That's why people can have different perspectives when they look at the same situation. So I chose to stop sweating the small stuff by telling myself things were always working out for me. Things were adding up for my good. I couldn't mess it up. That even my mess ups, what I would call mess ups, God was working out for me and it was all adding up for my good. I hope these tips help you today. If you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe for more future content coming your way. Let me know in the comments below which one helped you. I would love to hear your feedback, chat with you about it, and I will see you back on the show next week.